Hi, this is Dr. Wes Fryer. Today's October 25th, 2021, and I'd like to just share a little bit about my desired research agenda as an assistant professor. I have various interests that intersect with not only the creation of media, but also the processing and consumption and analytical thinking about media and media literacy that I'm super interested in. And so I guess one of my biggest passions since I wrote my first book in 2011 has been playing with media and creating media and showing what you know with media. And so I have a website, showwithmedia.com, that I've been maintaining since 2013, and research around the pedagogy of using the creation of media products as a way to look inside students' brains and try to understand what they're thinking and what they've learned. Using that for assessment is a very strong interest of mine. It's actually what I did for my dissertation when I took a look at the time, phone casting technology and the ways that, in this case, undergraduate college students could use a recorder to record summaries of lessons and then share those with classmates. And my study was analyzing whether or not that made a significant difference on their learning. So extending that kind of research and taking a look at a wide variety of different media products that people of all ages, but students specifically, can create, and then how those fit into assessment. I'm actually really passionate about a pedagogy of lesson design that is design, create, and share. So you design the learning experience that you want students to have. Students create a media product, and then they share that both with their class community, but in many cases also a wider and larger community for feedback. And then that process, I think, is a very authentic way of learning. So I'm very informed, and I'll talk a little bit in another video about my sort of teaching philosophy, but by Seymour Papert, constructionism, by John Dewey, experiential learning, Paulo Freire, the need that we have as teachers to not just be the deliverers of content, but to engage students in dialogue and conversation and in authentic experiences and interactions that lead to aha moments in learning and students being stretched, acquiring not only new knowledge but also new skills. So the idea of transmedia storytelling and the ways in which we tell stories. I love storytelling. I've been involved in a variety of oral history projects in the past and continue to do that, with my own students with family oral history. And so the use of oral history, the use of digital storytelling, and the impact that can have on learning, I think that's a strong interest. The hashtag #CreateToLearn is one of my favorite hashtags. In fact, if you look on Twitter and use the number 2, #CreateToLearn, you'll probably see a lot of posts that I've made over the years around that hashtag, and that really embodies the pedagogy I'm passionate about, and then also research that I want to do. I'd love to do research on Wikipedia. Wikipedia is over 20 years old now. There was a great article, I think it might have been in School Library Journal, that Joyce Valenza and other authors published in the last 6 months, I think, talking about how we need to be rethinking Wikipedia, and we need to be utilizing it as a resource, and not just teaching kids in classrooms and adults too. It's horrible, never touch it. And so I have a whole lesson that I teach my students on using Wikipedia as a launch pad, not as the only source that we'll use, but as a way to start our inquiry and then also find other resources. It's also a great way to do lateral reading, to look at the talk page. And so anyway, I would love to do research around those kinds of issues of user-created content, but Wikipedia specifically, the way in which it's used or not used in classrooms, and how teachers can be utilizing it with students to foster critical thinking, media literacy, and also just fueling the research process and identifying reputable and credible sources, but also kind of moving at the speed of creativity. If I could steal that from my own blog, I love that idea. Information moves so quickly today. It's so important. Media literacy is vital in terms of vetting information and how we have a process for being able to determine what it is that we're going to believe and we're going to regard as credible. And I think there's some really good research to do around that. I would also like to really continue to do research around what I've called a conspiracies and culture wars project. So a couple years ago, I started this project with a colleague, Brian Turnbaugh. It was an outcome actually of our Summer Institute in Digital Literacy up in Providence, Rhode Island. And we've worked a couple summers developing lessons and resources. I teach now. In fact, I have a sample lesson that I've recently recorded in that unit that I call Fruit Loop Conspiracy Theories with sixth graders. But taking that at different developmental levels, it's so important to address not only web and media literacy, but specifically conspiracy theories, the ways that information and social media platforms can take us down rabbit holes, equipping students, equipping people of all ages with the tools to be able to effectively analyze information and make decisions about whether or not to believe things, and then also how to identify things that are just off the edge, that are what I call Fruit Loop conspiracy theories. All of those things are important. And then the last thing I'll mention, I really am passionate about computational thinking and coding, Scratch coding. I love Scratch. I love helping teachers and students create Scratch projects across the curriculum. And so depending upon the kind of assistant professor position and the department that I land in, that could also be a focus that I really enjoy, is the development of computational thinking skills, the assessment of those, and then the effective instructional strategies that we can employ both within traditional classes, but also in after-school clubs and summer programs. There's a whole wide variety of ways we can get kids excited about coding. My kids are coming in here, so I need to stop recording.